Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. I, 31 female, was raised by a single mother with two younger brothers, and growing up as a teenager was like having Regina George as a parent. She belittled me constantly, controlled everything, screamed at me over little things, and insulted me every day. She convinced most of our family that I was a compulsive liar. By the time I was 16 or 17, I was prone to bouts of depression and anxiety, was called attention-seeking for this, and body dysmorphia. She always called me the pig of the family. She was putting pressure on me to stay at home for uni because it meant she could control me and that she could have a live-in maid because I did most of the housework by then. I went to universities far, far away from home, and when she found out, she kicked me out just before my exams began so I could experience what living in the real world was like. My dad's aunt took me in and I lived for the next few months at her until I left for uni. My egg donor refused to help me out financially and told me to go into sex work if I was that desperate because she predicted I'd end up dropping out and relying on her anyway. I cut her off not long after, and my grand aunt helped me with money till she died in my final year. I managed to get through university with money she left me, and once I graduated, I had some money left over to leave the country and start afresh. I moved to Ireland, and there I built a solid friendship group who encouraged me to get therapy. It took me a while, but therapy, surfing, painting, and adopting a few greyhounds healed me. I began dating my best friend, and we married 2 years later. We're expecting a baby girl in December, and we're moving back to his hometown in Austria when she's a toddler. I won't lie. I'm still in disbelief over how much I've changed over the years and how content I am with my life right now. So this brings us to a few hours ago. My egg donor sister kept an intermittent contact with me over the years and called me today to say that my mother was living in a house with no electricity or water back in our home country. For reference, I'm British and hopefully soon to be Irish Indian. She apparently was begging me for another chance because she was my mother and deserved kindness, especially now that she was old. I laughed at this and told my aunt to tell her you can say I won't ever help her and to not contact me again. She can experience what living in the real world is like. My aunt told me that I was totally ungrateful and I was being too harsh because in Indian culture we respect our elders. I asked my aunt why she couldn't ask my younger brothers, and apparently they both dropped out of uni and even now struggle to hold jobs, so aren't as stable as me. I've blocked my aunt's number and my friends and husband are saying I did the right thing. But I also feel guilty because I can't imagine it being fun being an older person in a freezing cold flat with no electricity either. Not the a-hole, and speaking as someone who had an egg donor like yours, you owe your abuser nothing. She made her bed, she can lie in it. Protect your baby girl and make sure your mother goes nowhere near the amazing life you've built for yourself. It's hard for people with normal moms to understand what folks like us went through. They hear that you've cut your mother out of your life and they think you must be the heartless one. They have no idea. Not the a-hole, and I think it's important that you keep your deranged mother out of your life now that you have a little one. Your child is your priority, and the emotional upheaval your mother would cause for you is not healthy. Your mother has choices, so does your aunt. If she's so concerned, let her keep your mother. She's only piling on the guilt because she knows better than to take the responsibility for your mom herself. And she'll feel less guilty or whatever if she thought you were responsible for her. Don't touch this situation with a 10-foot pole. It's crazy. She's not even born yet, and I'm already crazy protective over her. I did ask my aunt why she couldn't help, and she just mumbled something. I have no interest in entertaining my egg donor again. Not the a-hole. In Indian culture, we respect our elders. I'm not Indian, so forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I've been led to understand that the reason that respect and caring for one's parent is expected in many Asian cultures is because it's also expected for parents to care for and support their children when they're in school and young adults. Kicking you out to experience the real world and telling you to be a sex worker is just horrible. Your mother clearly did not hold up her end of cultural expectation for you, so I don't know why she should expect to reap benefits here. You owe her nothing, but best of luck with your pregnancy and congratulations on escaping your family's toxicity. That is the expectation, yes. But the sad thing is, it's very normal in South Asian culture to be expected to respect your parents no matter how cruel they are to you. I know not all Indian parents are like this, but so many of them expect to be taken care of even though they've done nothing but done the bare minimum. And thank you, my girl's brewing up nicely. At the last scan, the doctor said she has very long legs, so I'm pretty sure that comes from her 6'4" dad. Not the a-hole. You know that keeping distance between you and your mother has led to nothing but good things for you. You are happy and healthy now. Letting your mother back in would only jeopardize that. You don't owe her anything. Surely there are avenues for her to get heating to her flat via government avenues or elderly assistance. Or let your aunt or brothers help her. You don't need to feel guilty here. You made your own way after she shut you out. She can do the same. From what I could make out, where she lives in India now is quite remote, so the electricity is very patchy. This I can believe because it happened whenever I visited my grandparents. My brother's outer family don't have as much money as me, I don't think, hence why she's come to me. Next story. So my ex gives me a generous amount of child support every month, and I use about 20 to 30% of it maybe. I'm very good at budgeting since my mom raised me on her own and we always stuck to a strict budget. My ex grew up being overindulged and knowing he would never have to worry about money in his lifetime, so we have different ideas of what living cheaply looks like. Recently, my ex wanted to have a word with me because he didn't like the fact that I made our son walk home from school. He wanted to know why I wouldn't buy a car and offered me money to get one when I told him cars were expensive and I thought it was a waste of money. I told him no, since I would rarely use it. He then told me to take an Uber home instead of making him walk. Again, I told him no, and he brought up all the other ways he thought I was making our son live cheaply. For example, I didn't buy him new football boots or a goal when he started getting into football. He's only 4. I buy him cheap clothes. I rarely take him to eat out, and if we go to a toy shop, I only ever let him get one thing, and it can't be super expensive. My ex wanted to know what I was using all of the money he gave to me on if I was raising our son like this, so I explained. I never used most of it, but kept it in a separate account for either a rainy day or for our son. Now he's angry at me for making our son live cheaply and essentially told me to stop saving and actually give our son the things he wants now because he had already made sure our son would be fine in the future. Am I the a-hole? Of course, my 4-year-old son doesn't walk home alone from school. I drop him off and then pick him up. The teacher only lets him leave the building after she sees me. Also, it's a 25-minute walk for anyone who cares. You're the a-hole. All that money should be used to support your son, not put away for a rainy day and put any excess money in a college fund or something for his future. This is not your money, it's for your son. I think it depends on what the rainy day fund means in this case. Say original poster loses her job and needs to dip into the fund to feed her kid. Is that so bad? Or saving in case of a medical emergency for her kid. Assuming US and its awful healthcare costs. It's always important to have an emergency fund, but especially important when you have a kid. Just because it's going into a fund doesn't mean that it's not for the kid's needs. The kid just hasn't had needs for it yet. You're the a-hole. Child support is for the child. If you aren't using it for the child, maybe he should take you back to court to renegotiate how much money he's giving you and instead buy your son stuff. There's nothing wrong with buying cheaper clothes or stuff that he's going to get messy and outgrow, or not buy lots of toys. But there needs to be a clear discussion about what child support is for. Does he have any custody? Is the child support court ordered? Also, how far is your kid walking to from school? As he's only 4, I assume it's with you. There's a difference between 2 blocks and a mile. Research shows that having less toys is better for kids' development, especially in terms of developing creativity. Walking is good exercise. The original poster said 25-minute walk. There is nothing wrong with that. The money saved for an emergency on her child's future is not a bad thing. She can live more easily knowing there is money for an emergency and her kid will have a nice egg of money for college trades program, down payment on a house. As long as she isn't neglecting her child, I don't think her ex really has a say. Original poster might be misleading, but nothing she describes as neglectful. Not the a-hole. People walk to and from school, work, to get groceries, etc. Kids don't need expensive clothes or boots. If you're comfortable and he's fed, dressed appropriately, and safe, I see no problem with you saving the money for a rainy day or a car or college fund for later on. Next story. I'm 25 male. I recently hit fire. When I was 18, my dad told me to leave the house because there can only be one man in the house is what he said. So when he kicked me out, I needed money. Got a job, and when working my job, which was minimum wage, I was using the money towards starting an e-commerce business. While I was working on the business, I worked my 9 to 5 job, and after work hours, I'd work on the business. My dad basically went like no contact with me and made the whole family cut ties with me, which sucked. Finally, when I was 23 and my business became successful and I was able to quit my job and work on my business full time, and there was this news company, I'll give it a fake name. Let's call it Globex or something. Globex is a news media company and they have a website that posts stocks, economy news daily. My dad loves following stock news, and so he reads Globex news every day. Recently, an article by Globex was done. A journalist from Globex reached out to me and wanted to write a story article about how I hit fire at a young age about my e-commerce business. Apparently, my dad was scrolling on Globex and that article popped up and he saw that article, and then he called me and he told me he was mad at me and that I'm an a-hole because I didn't provide any money to him, and I'm a son and I should send him money monthly because that is what a good son does, and he wants access to my bank accounts and all. He also told me that I'm responsible for the household and should provide him financially. Am I the a-hole for not telling him about my finances? Not the a-hole. Hey, if there can be only one man in the house, he doesn't need a second man paying the bills, right? Change your phone number and don't talk to him again. He literally kicked you out and only contacted you after finding out you made it. You turned lemon into lemonade. Don't let him have a sip. Not the a-hole. Your dad cut contact with you, so how are you supposed to tell him? Also, he kicked you out of the house and basically disowned you at 18 because there can only be one man in the house? That is the stupidest reason I've ever heard for kicking a kid out of the house. Take a page out of your dad's book and cut him off. Tell him that he wanted nothing to do with you the moment you turned 18 and now his wish is granted. Do not give him any money, not even as a loan, unless you want to make it a legally binding contract with interest to be paid back like a bank and totally done through lawyers. But even then, I would recommend against it, and definitely do not give him access to your bank accounts. He was not a good father, so there's no reason for you to be a good son. And honestly, even if he had been a good father, you would not be obligated to give him any money anyway. Should anyone try to guilt you into giving in to him, or he tries to go to the press, explain what you said here. He kicked you out at 18 for no reason. He chose to disown you and go no contact with you, and thus he excused himself from your life and you have nothing to do with him anymore. If someone started to say but family, tell them he chose to cut all family ties with you at 18, and thus no such ties remain between the two of you. Rinse and repeat as needed. Next story. So my university had a parents' week incited by my mom. I told her that she may have a new family, but I'm not a part of it, and that I was really excited to spend the weekend with her now that I'm 21. I thought we could go to the cute boutiques downtown and then go to bars and tailgate. I was crying at this point and my mom said I was being really rude. I told her that she was being selfish and it was already hard for me to be at my dad's alma mater on parents' weekend, and that she was making it so much worse for me and really making it obvious that I don't have a dad anymore and that he's easily replaceable. My mom then cried and my stepdad said that he was disappointed in me, and I went back to my apartment. I barely saw the rest of them for the weekend. Edited to add, I'm 21 female, dad died 13 years ago, mom remarried 10 years ago, and I think it was pretty obvious that the plans were 21 up and daughter-mother things. She also knew that I was sad about my dad that weekend. You're the a-hole. It sounds like your expectations for the weekend weren't shared with your mom and you're blaming your mom. Also, I saw your comment below about not really being ready to accept your mother having remarried and having more children with someone other than your father. You defend yourself with not being ready. What in the name of all that is holy will it take to be ready, if not 13 years of resolving within yourself your father's passing? Sounds to me as though you need to get into some counseling to help resolve your dad's passing so you can move forward with it, rather than being stuck in it for the last 13 years. The fact you told your mother you resented her replacing your dad screams, I'm stuck at 8 years old and I'm still angry my father passed away. But he's not here to yell at, so I'm blaming my mom. Your mother waited an exceptionally reasonable amount of time before remarrying. She also has the right to move forward with her life. Would you have preferred she wrap herself in a shawl, sit in a rocking chair, and live the life of a nun so you could be happy while she's miserable? When would have it been better for your mother to have remarried? 10 years after she lost the love of her life? 15 years? 20? Never? You're simply not being honest with yourself about your feelings on this whole matter, and you're being wildly unfair towards your mother. You say you're 21, but you sound so much like a little girl throwing a temper tantrum. Get thee into counseling, child, and learn to accept the passing of your father. I'm not saying forget him, but your heart certainly has room in it to love more than one father. Also, you have siblings that you keep at arm's length. That has less to do with whatever and more to do with you not wanting to be hurt again. No man is an island, but you're sure working hard to make that your world. Bottom line, there is going to be time you actually want a relationship with these people and be a part of this family. Let's hope you're pushing them away for so long hasn't taken its toll and they no longer want anything to do with you. Very gentle, you're the a-hole, assuming you didn't make your expectations clear up front. There has obviously been time since your dad died. Yes, you get to decide who to let in your life, but these people are your family. Please seek counseling to work through your grief before you lose a relationship with your mother. You're the a-hole. You had expectations that you never communicated. You excuse yourself as not being ready to accept the man who helped your mother rear you for 10 years and your half-siblings as being family. You refer to your stepfather as your mom's friend. This man has had more to do with your life than your biological father, who tragically passed away before you were a teenager. You seem to hold an idealized image of your late father. You need therapy. Otherwise, you risk alienating everyone in your immediate family, including your half-siblings, who you seem unable and unwilling to accept as family.